Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Holy and Hormonal podcast. My name is Kim Caputo. I created this podcast just to make a safe space for us to talk about periods and hormones from a Christian perspective. I'm so excited for today's episode. I'm going to keep the intro short and sweet because I just cannot wait for you guys to listen to who we have on the pod. She is a personal friend of mine, a sister in Christ. We actually met a few years ago over TikTok, which we can talk about in a little bit. But she is just so knowledgeable and wise, not only in her wisdom of the Lord, but of hormones and fitness and health. And she's been helping me along my journey to heal my hormones naturally. She's been giving me a fitness plan for the past few months because I'm getting married in September. And it has been so nice to have her just guide me through all of this. And without further ado, we're going to intro my girl, Simone. Welcome to the Holy and Hormonal podcast. You're the first guest ever on the pod. And I literally didn't want anyone else. I was like, we have to get you on the podcast. The girls are going to love you. We're going to learn so much. So thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you so much for having me on this podcast. I am so honored to be the first guest and honestly to see you be the host of this and just creating all of this out there. I mean, going through a journey with you coaching was probably the easiest thing ever, but never did I realize at that time that when the Lord put you on my heart to reach out to you to get ready for this coaching, that you would create something that's just so awesome and that's just out there for helping other women. So thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's going to be the best. It was so crazy, you guys. Like a few months ago, you took a break on social media
Yeah.
for like 3 months. And at this point, I was also feeling the Lord stir my heart for talking about hormones and just speaking out about how it's so hard to have faith when we're on our periods. And then you come back to social media and you see that I'm talking about hormones, but then the Lord in your break from social media was talking to you about
It was
hormones.
it was so
That's so
ridiculous. When I
crazy.
opened my Instagram for the first time, you were the first post that I saw. And literally the first one, I was like, this is like no way. Within that time of taking the break, the Lord just was like showing to me a lot of because I personally struggle with mental health and how I just came to realize that with all of that, how much is actually connected to just hormone fluctuations. And coming back on the social media, finding your post, how you were talking about like how do you manage staying faithful while going through all of that? It was just such a link, and I couldn't stop thinking about like the fact that you were on that journey. And I remember one night in prayer, it was a few nights actually, that the Lord kept telling me to just reach out to you, like reach out. I was like, wow, well, she's getting married soon, like why do I not just ask her to join the coaching program? And that's how it happened.
It was all so amazing. So tell everyone about who you are, where you come from, a little bit about your background, what you're doing now. Just tell them everything about you.
Originally, I'm from South Africa, and I have been traveling the world since 2016. And I've been very blessed where the Lord has been sending me to some amazing countries and places to really just reach out to more people, specifically using fitness and wellness to do that. And my journey started in 2017. That is also where my journey in fitness started, was basically where my relationship with Christ started. And I ended up going through a very tough
Amen.
time mentally, just being diagnosed with a mental disorder, which is bipolar type 2. And I kind of felt really broken and felt like, like I needed fixing, and ended up having a journey of self development. You start working out, you're reading all of these self help books. And it was in that moment that I met Christ. And it was the moment that Christ stepped into my life that everything just skyrocketed for me within my fitness journey. I went from starting just by doing a simple transformation for my own health, to sharing more about that on Instagram. By sharing that, getting in connection with a trainer who was at the time training Victoria's Secret models, and I didn't know it at the time. And my career grew so much from that, going from working on super yachts, training royal families, moving on to starting my own career online,
Nuts.
and ended up becoming celebrity personal trainer just last year, or like 2 years ago. And now, yet again, now fulfilling my destiny in just building out my own online coaching platform, which has just been it's been an incredible journey.
It's so funny because I'm like, what part of the world is Simone in today? Like, is she in the Maldives? Is she in Dubai? Is she in Sri Lanka? Is she in South Africa? I'm like, when are you coming to
Well,
America? That has to be next on your world
Yes.
travels, I know. But it's so inspiring. I love your social media and the way that you simplify things is really a gift because these are really complicated, complex topics when we're talking about hormones and the muscles in our bodies and all these things about our organs. Like it can be really difficult to understand, but the way that you break it down is so organic and so approachable and digestible that it's like no wonder why people gravitate towards you and the way that you speak. And obviously people see the Holy Spirit in you behind every post that you post, like put out there on social media. And also the aesthetics are just great. If you want to watch her do Pilates in the Maldives on a mat, it is like the most amazing content ever. I'm just so inspired by
Thanks.
you every day. So, like, what prompted this journey into hormones specifically? Because when I started following you, you were mostly posting Christian content and also fitness, and it was very much like heavy lifting and mostly like cardio and fitness in the gym. And then it suddenly switched to workouts that are more attuned to your hormones. So, like, what prompted that change?
This was in the time I think that I also took the break from my social media. I had a lot more thought about, like, actually, it was more of an awareness during my prayer time with God where He started telling me more about femininity. And I wasn't really
Mm,
familiar with the topic on femininity. And personally, I know that there's content online about that. I didn't see any content because I was not even on Instagram, and I didn't hear people speak about it. So it wasn't something that I actually saw somewhere. This was really something personal in conversations between myself and the Lord. And He just started telling me a little bit more about what it means to really be a woman, and pointing me into a direction of to read about the woman in the Bible. And at first that was not comfortable at all, let me tell you that. But I mean, that was the moment
mm,
where things started shifting for me. And I used to have this belief that I don't need a man, like I'm totally fine by myself. God, like I'm okay with it, with
yep.
just being me and you. And I was really fixated on that, and didn't really know that that was also hyper independence. It was within that time that I even realized that hyper independence is a thing. Now, if I can explain the training, like regarding to that, and also I just want to mention that this is my own personal experience, and whatever I get to share, uh,
Right.
it doesn't mean that you have to agree with what I have to say. A lot of girls are going to have a different background, and your background definitely does play a role in how you're going to perceive everything in your life. And that hyper independence, the feeling of not needing a man, wanting to be like very strong and more dominant, competitive, at that time, it was those values and things that I believed about myself that translated in my training, which was the heavy lifting, ego
Mm,
lifting, lifting with the boys, competing, always putting labels on myself, or having a very strict training plan. And the moment that I just embraced more of my femininity, it changed my entire mindset around my training. Like it literally just changed by itself. I didn't go into researching more about it. Even it was an internal shift that happened where I just realized, like, wow, I'm actually able to not have to do so much. I don't really need to press that hard in the gym to try and prove something. I don't really need to fight to be ahead of the game. I really don't need to like prove something to anyone. And that was such a place of freedom for myself. And, I didn't choose to do Pilates, but on the island, we had Reformer Pilates, and we were told, like, you need to get qualified for this. It's something very popular on the island, and got qualified in that. And by doing more Pilates, the fact that it's more slow, it's still concentrated, it's still very tough, and it challenges me so much. However, I'm not having to compete against anyone in this moment. I'm only competing with myself.
yeah.
And I'm not saying that when you're lifting that you're competing with someone else. I still lift heavy. It's not that I'm against heavy lifting. It's just that my mentality and approach to training has changed so much, where I realized for women, it is so much different than for men, as the way that we perceive life and how we do life is different. And once you can only understand that, then
Yeah.
then the change starts happening. So it really started with a personal conversation between myself and the Lord.
That's so great. Like it reminds me of the scripture of like do not be, conformed by the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the
Yeah,
renewing of your mind. And femininity has been something that I struggled with so much as a kid because like I was bullied by women and like I just didn't feel like I had emotional support or anything from like a lot of women in my life. And so I took on this more masculine role of like I can hang with the boys and I'm like the boys girl. I'm not like other girls. Like I'm not like a girly girl. All the guys like me because I could play sports, I can keep up,
yeah,
like, and now that I'm older, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I actually love being a woman. Like God designed femininity in such a unique and special way, and it looks so countercultural to what the world says that a woman should be. And I love the feminist movement. Like I think every woman should own their lane and do what they want to do. But I think that sometimes it gets a little out of control where like God created gender roles for a reason. They're meant to complement each other, and one can't take on the load of the other, and vice versa. I don't think men can handle the emotional load of being a woman and what motherhood looks like and all of that. Like, men aren't designed to have the same type of emotional response women are. And so I just think it's so beautiful. Like, when you figure out who God created you to be in your roles, in your gender, in your identity, everything becomes more simplified and you start to feel like things become easier and
yeah.
less of a burden, and you just naturally start slipping into those roles, and it's just so beautiful that the Lord designed us that way
Yeah, I
for a
don't know
reason.
if you can maybe relate to this, but did you feel in that time where you were showing up, like being part of the boys and you're so much different than other girls and, like hanging out with the guys, did you ever feel that that would make you more desirable to the opposite sex?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're going to fall in love with me because they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, she's so cool and she can hang and she likes the things that I like." But it all was under the guise of wanting that male
Yeah.
validation.
And that was what I realized as well, as the fact that I didn't realize it at the time, but I thought in those moments that I would be able to meet the perfect person for me by, being strong and independent and not being a girly girl. However, what I realized is if you want a masculine man, which a masculine man has the traits to take care of you, to provide security, to actually be that family, right?
Amen.
And if you have to keep going down that route of being hyper independent and being very competitive and like putting on that guard, a masculine man will never choose a woman who is going to constantly go up against his masculinity. And I know a lot of people are now going to probably, not a
Mm.
lot, like some people will feel offended by what I have to say about this. However, I had that battle too. I know how hard this is. Like when the Lord was like, you need to calm down, you need to be in a receiving state, you need to step back, you need to accept leadership, be in submission. And I think all of us, most of us, when we read that word, like submit to your husband, I remember being in a situation, I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
right. No, that's, like something's wrong in the Bible here. Like, what is this?
God, you got it
Yeah,
wrong.
and
Sorry to tell
it
you.
was a really tough fight for me. And I used to be this girl. Like I used to be
Mhm.
that girl. So some of you that might be listening to this be like, no, I can't do that. Like I used to be you. And it was such a hard place for me to let go of that hyper independence and like I got everything under control. I got this. I can do this by myself. Like I don't need a man to help me. To realize that letting go is probably the easiest thing that I could have done because it was the moment that I did that I met the man of my prayers. Not my dreams, prayers. And
Ugh,
it exceeded everything that I even prayed for. He was exactly what God knew that I needed. And it's been such a eye-opening journey where I realized like if I did not submit to God first, and this is the first line that you need to submit to is
mm.
God, like to submit to him, then you will meet the right person because then you're ready to meet the right person in your life to actually submit to submit to a really masculine man. And a masculine man is what I think for in our roles of like biblical wives. A masculine man is a man that can also submit to God.
100%. Like the world says that men have to be these tough, unemotional, cold stone bulldozers, basically, where it's just like I say what I say and I'm always right. And I'm going to go do whatever I want. And I'm going to mistreat my wife at home. And I'm not going to really be around for the kids. But it's just not God's design. Like I look at David in the Bible and all he did was just pray and fast and seek the Lord and repent and ask for wisdom, and all these biblical men who are just in full submission to God, like seek first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added to you. And so it's interesting that, well, we know that the Bible and what Jesus says is true yesterday, today, and forever. But in this world of, it's kind of like a split of masculine and feminine, it's interesting that our education for women around
Mm.
fitness and exercise is all based on like a man's routine. Like I didn't know that Pilates is a better option for women, phased specifically through where you're at in your menstrual cycle, or just maybe like more low impact movements is better for women. Like I didn't know any of these things because I was also training on like a bro split, which I love how you call it, a bro split. But there's just no education, and there's no advice of women being like, hey, actually I think this might be a better way, that you might lower your cortisol if you switch your exercises this way. So just explain a little bit about how like you went from going from like a heavy routine with like a bro split in the gym to now like a flow split, and how that has helped your hormones and your
Yeah.
overall
So
health.
going from a perspective also as being a trainer, I had to study, and I had to go through articles and curriculums to actually study about strength training and programs. And everything that I knew came from whatever I studied. And it was only in the time that like I took a step off from social media that I was just doing internal work. I didn't even go anywhere outside like researching things. My phone was just, it was just something I put to the side. And personally, I started asking myself questions after a really, really bad case of, my menstrual cycle. I was in so much pain. I passed out. I had to get injections for the pain. And I was just like, what
Jeez.
the heck was that? And that was the moment where I started like, going into research a little bit about menstrual cycle. Why am I experiencing this pain? What is causing this extreme pain? Are other women going through this? For me, the pain sounded like, if I had to explain it, it felt as if, like I'm having a baby. It was that painful, and I don't even know what it feels like to have a baby. And
Ugh.
this was the moment where I was like, okay, something's up. Did some research on that, and then only I found, people talking about like different phases within the cycle. And I was like, what? I thought it's just the menstrual cycle. Oh, I thought it was just your period, right? I didn't know that there were four different
Mm-hmm.
phases within the cycle. And by going through all of that, I started really realizing, okay, I'm actually very in tune with my body. I know when I'm having my cycle. And then started, when I learned about the four different phases, started tracking my own cycle and my moods and how my energy actually feels
Mm-hmm.
throughout the time. And that was so eye-opening for me, as I never knew about that before. And I, yet again, I wasn't on social media, and I didn't feel comfortable about saying anything about it on social media until I actually went through the journey myself. Because this is the best way for me to actually speak the truth. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, so I can't go from like just scientific papers. I read scientific papers, but I think we live in a world today where everybody's just like, okay, but prove it, prove it, prove it. Do I need to prove to you that if
Right.
something makes me feel good, that it works? All right. So I think that we need to be in
Mm-hmm.
a place for women specifically, why I am so passionate about this and learning about the menstrual cycle and how to train according to the cycle, eat according to your cycle, live according to your cycle, is that women, as women, we have that one thing that's a gift to us, which is intuition. And give me science that can prove intuition. How? That's the one gift that we
Yeah.
have from God, is intuition, which I truly believe is like that whisper of the Holy Spirit. And this is, oh, I just got
Amen.
goosebumps. This is something that's so special to us, and everything in this world is trying to suppress that, because that brings us power. We know that the enemy has an agenda against women, and this is something that I'm so excited about, and why we are on this podcast today talking about this, as the Lord really wants his woman to know that, hey, I've given you some like extra superpower, and I want you to use that. And it's time that you actually know that you have this superpower. Now, I can go on a tangent on this topic, but when it comes to the training and within the different cycles, that was my journey, how I started realizing like, okay, I have these four phases, and there's going to be certain phases that my testosterone's going to drop. I'm going to have elevated progesterone in certain times of my phases where I'm not going to have as much energy as before. What is the point of actually then pushing a little bit harder when I know my body physically isn't actually in a place to push harder? And what happened is I was following these perfectly set programs, lifting the weights, doing what I am told to do, but I wasn't getting the results that I really wanted. I looked good, yes, but
Mhm.
it wasn't what I wanted. I was following everything to the T, tracking my macros, doing the progressive overload, training every day. I was taking my rest days, but I still wasn't in the shape that I wanted to be in. And what I realized with now that I'm going through all of it, I realized that it was mostly about the cortisol. I still had a very puffy face. I had a lot of puffiness all over my body, and now I'm eating so clean, and I'm not even having cheat days, and I'm training very good training program, but I was still having like this excess like fluffiness. Like I want to call it like fluffiness. And when I started doing cycle syncing, I was training a lot less. I was enjoying my sessions a lot more. They were a lot shorter than before. I was still doing like a style of progressive overload, but now I'm not trying to prove a point into like, look, I can lift this much and
Mhm.
everybody look at me, like I can do this. I need to, run super fast on the treadmill. No, I would be there in my corner, have my little moment, 30, 45 minutes. I'm like, I'm done. And by following my own internal like like rhythm, I got into the best shape of my life, and I cannot believe it that I'm doing so much less. I'm having so much more peace. I'm enjoying my life so much more than ever before. I'm having no problems where I'm thinking about like, oh, I can't eat this, or if I eat this, I need to work out this much. All of those all of those voices are gone. And I think this is the thing about cycle syncing is that
Amen.
it's not about trying to follow cycle syncing to the T again, because that already is also a masculine approach to it. If you're putting yourself into a place of, okay, this is the plan, this is what we need to do. No, it's about finding the flow.
Yep.
It's about going with your flow. And that was my big realization of how much it helped me with cycle syncing, is that I got more peace of mind. I don't need to just follow things to the T. It's better for me to actually listen to my body and be in a good relationship with my body to know that, oh, today is a day that I have a lot of energy. I can push and I can have fun with it. And then when it comes to luteal phase, is that it's okay if I just feel emotional for the day. And if I feel really exhausted, it's okay for me to take the rest without having that guilt. Because I think guilt is the biggest part
Yeah.
of the journey where you start like losing your motivation, you're not staying consistent anymore, and it can go on a really bad route of self-confidence damage. And cycle syncing has helped me to get rid of all of those negative voices in my mind.
I love that you brought that up about guilt because I'm on this journey too. As you know, you're literally like my fitness and health coach. So Simone gets voice memos from me all the time. I'm like hysterically crying about my body image and like you've just been helping so much, but it really is true. Like women have this, I'm not going to speak for all women because I'm sure some don't, but in my experience, if I'm not pushing myself to the limit in the gym, if I'm not dripping in sweat, if I'm not panting and heaving, then my workout wasn't effective. And it's just such a lie. Like, says who? Like, says who? Like, what standard am I holding myself to push myself this hard, to like literally be exhausted, to be in so much pain the next day and then feel so guilty about it? Like who said I have to train that way? Like where did I think that this came from? And then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm comparing myself to men." Like they can train and push themselves because their hormonal system is set up in a way that supports that,
No,
whereas ours is not. And I just think the whole guilt thing is like women have a tendency to feel like they have to suffer in some sort of way to earn something, or like to feel like they have to work so hard to get that reward. But it's like biblical femininity. We're just meant to receive and then multiply. Like we're supposed to operate from a place of rest and peace. And only then when I had the renewing of my mind from the Holy Spirit about all of this, then I started, the voices, like you said, started to dim down. I wasn't looking at my body anymore being like, I need to get rid of this, this, and this. And then the weight started shedding off so fast. I was just so much more happy, so much more content with where I was, to the point where I didn't even want to lose any more weight. I just wanted to be happy and healthy. And that's the place where I feel like all of us want to be. So like what would you say to like the woman who we both were and sometimes still struggle with, of like, I'm doing all the quote unquote right things, I'm eating what Google says I should eat, I'm following this keto or low carb diet, and I'm training really hard but nothing's working. Like, what advice do you have for those women?
When it comes to doing everything that you can and you're still not seeing the results, I think there's one thing that fitness people don't talk about often, is that a lot of times the excess fat that you carry is not because of your eating or just the training. It's about the emotional weight that you're carrying. This
Go
is
there.
where this is where the choices come from that you make. If you're going to be feeling emotionally upset, sad, depressed, how are you going to eat? You're going to be reaching out for all of those comfort foods. You're going to be choosing to rather stay in bed instead of moving out of your comfort zone, you know? And it's emotional excess weight that is literally the thing that is being hold on. Like, you can do the training, you can do the eat, like the nutrition, you can do all of that. But if you're not working on the subconscious level as well, how are you supposed to change your decision making process? Because that's how you change your lifestyle, that's how you make the changes. And a lot of things, I mean, we talk a lot about hormonal health and hormones, but your hormones is also
Yeah.
directly correlated to the way that you're going to make decisions. If you're making this decision, are you putting yourself under a lot of stress? Are you actually making a decision that's going to help you get out of a level of stress, put you into a place of an elevated mood? So now we are talking dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. We need those in order to like feel good. And how many things are you doing to actually elevate that? And that's why when it comes to like doing everything, still not seeing results, I would say the first thing that you need to think about when it comes to training, stop thinking about the perfect plan or the perfect eating plan or the perfect training plan.
Mm.
Start thinking about training as a level of mindset. It is 100% a mindset, and it's about making a conscious decision of the type of woman who you want to become. That would be the first thing I would tell you to do. I wouldn't tell you to just go and find the right program. I will tell you, go and sit, spend time with yourself, ask yourself some questions like, who is the woman that you want to become? What does she look like? How does she dress? How does she speak? Who are her friends? How does she go about training? What training does she do? Like these type of questions, you'll start getting so much more clarity. And once you have that level of clarity, you will start acting according to that woman. The transformation happens instantly. You don't even need to wait. You don't need to wait for like 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, which is how a program obviously would manage. But your transformation can happen today by actually having that vision of who you want to become, because your mind subconsciously will start making the decisions in order to make that person like be a reality.
That's so good. And so something that we worked on together is, I think, and you've also said, my body holds on to some excess estrogen. So when women are dealing with hormonal imbalances when it comes to fitness, like, what does cycle syncing do? Like, how does cycle syncing help with eliminating excess estrogen or help ease symptoms of like maybe PCOS or endometriosis or other excess estrogen related hormonal
So
imbalances?
what I mentioned before, a big thing when it comes to, with cycle syncing is that it can really help you to alleviate stress. And when you alleviate stress, we have a more regulated nervous system. So when it comes to regulating a nervous system, it's going to be different for everybody else. But when you have high levels of estrogen, it's usually also when you have high levels of fat in the body, because fat will also elevate estrogen levels, and we want to be getting that down and regulating your nervous system. Your body will be in a place of being more prone to be able to burn fat. We want to get the body in a place of homeostasis. Now, when you're in a place of homeostasis, the body is more comfortable to actually burn fat, because we speak about fat, right? But fat isn't necessarily also a bad thing. And cortisol in itself also isn't really a bad thing. It's not just bad, it's just when you have excess of that. So, excess cortisol, excess fat, then you have excess estrogen. So we want to get that in a place to be more balanced. And it really comes down to moving out of a place of like less stress. Now, when we think about cycle syncing, if you're going to be in a place within luteal phase where progesterone now is already like higher, your testosterone has dropped. So right now you don't have as much energy as you used to. If your body's now under a level of stress, if you're gonna add more stress, imagine stress on stress. So what does stress on stress do? We need to actually think about that equation. Stress plus stress equals more stress. So, and then stress also equals extra cortisol. All right. So, extra cortisol also means extra estrogen. Now, when you start making that equation, it starts like really relating a lot more to what is going on with cycle syncing. When you can honor the time that your body is already under stress, now you realize instead of now going into a place of pushing my body over the edge, because we tend to be in this place like when you don't feel as strong or as capable, now you want to push harder because you want to prove a point that you
Mhm.
can do this and you are capable. Instead of when you can honor that, you'll have so much better results because your body in this time is not supposed to be pushed. It's actually supposed to be like held back a little bit. And you win and get ahead of the game so much faster when you know how to step back. In any success journey, the best part is when you actually know when to step back instead of pushing harder. And it comes like, when you have your race or marathon race, you need to check your pace. And cycle syncing is like checking your pace consistently. And when you can honor that, you'll have so much less problems like burnout. How many women today we know that are just constantly burning out? You can avoid that. And when you learn how to honor your cycle, and it's going to be different for every woman, but this is where we go again, like intuitive, you want to really feel what does your body tell you in this moment. So cycle syncing is, I would say that cycle syncing is a really great place to start to learn more about like your own physiology, because you as a woman, like, you have
Yeah,
a
that's
period.
right.
And I remember when I started with my period, like, it's something that I used to be ashamed of. I didn't really know how to handle it. I didn't want it. I was like, why do I have to go through this? Like, why did God choose for us to go through this and I have to go through this every single month? And I try to push it away, push it away, push it away. And I remember when I came off of birth control, when I had my first period, it was like, wow, I am actually so happy that I had my period back, because it's been 3 years of not having my period. I was like, I'm actually so happy that it's back because I felt so healthy. I instantly felt so much more healthy. And it was a crazy experience because I hated it all my life because I used to have so much bad pain. Yet, if I had not gone through that pain, I would not be here on this podcast today speaking to you about the things that I know today. And pain always has a purpose. You just need to find that purpose in the pain. So that's basically like when it comes to the cycle syncing, it's really about
Yeah.
regulating your nervous system in the end of the day, getting rid of more stress.
I know that there's going to be a woman listening to this who's like, listen, you don't get it. I have a family to feed. I have a crazy 9 to 5 job. My life is stressful. There is no way to eliminate some of the stress in my life. What are some practical things that women in really high stress situations and lifestyles can do to help bring down
Yeah.
those cortisol
I
levels?
mean, today's life is a really stressful life, and it really doesn't have to be complicated. I think a lot of women might be getting confused that you need to be doing more in order to actually help your body, have less stress. But it's really about doing the little things to help your body just support it. You don't need to be perfect at this. It really can be as easy like the moment when you wake up in the morning, just take a moment to get some sunshine on your face, and also start with hydration. Because like a lot of women, too many women, like, I don't know what it is like within the female community why we struggle to just drink water. But start in the morning, get your hydration up, because you need to take care of yourself first before your family can actually, before you can take care of your family. And I think a lot of women kind of have this backwards. I work with a lot of CEOs, and I always tell them, if something had to happen to your health today, who's going to run the company? And they're like, oh, and they, everything
Mm,
for them is like the company and this and this and this. It's like everything, and I have this to do and this. And it's like, okay, but what happens if you're not there and you're sick? What happens to the company? And all of a sudden it just like hits. And the same thing for a family. Like for you as the mom, it's so important for you to take care of your health first, because your children will look up to you for the way that you take care of your health. They'll learn that, how important it is to take care of your health and your well-being. So practical ways to go about this: really take care of yourself first and then take care of the rest, like fill your cup first and then the rest. And I obviously, like, I do understand mothers, and I work with mothers as well, and it's a hard thing, but they do have that realization, like, wow, if I'm not gonna take care of myself, like, how can I give the best version of myself to my kids or my husband? And if you can make
Yeah.
that shift, the inner glow that will happen will be so great. So think about it in that way, instead of just
Yeah.
being like, but I'm selfish if I put myself first. And that comes up quite a lot. And I think it's like it's a bit of an attack of the enemy trying to burn you out and trying to wear you out.
Mm.
Whereas we know, put the kingdom of God first. Your body is a temple, like put it first. Like put it first. So getting some sunshine in the morning is a really great way to start off your circadian rhythm. And then when that's regulated, your sleep and wake cycle can be more regulated. And I would say you've done this before, which is like within 30 minutes of waking up, having 30 grams of protein, going for the 30-minute walk. Now, I mean, that's a really nice way to think about it. But so many people don't even do one of those things, like a 30-minute walk.
Yeah. Or they don't have the time to. Not everyone can go on a
Yeah,
30-minute
so you
walk
can
in the
start off
morning.
easily by definitely incorporating more protein into your meals, like 30 grams of protein per meal, and start just by going for a 10-minute walk after you've had a meal, because this can really help with digestion and then also regulating your blood sugar, which this is probably the most important part
Mm.
for women, is to start thinking about regulating your blood sugar. And there's simple hacks, and I'll give you a few. One is going to be apple cider vinegar, and another one's going to be in the order that you eat your food. You're pretty familiar with this one, Kim. And
I know. You tell it to me all the time, and I love it. It
yeah, it
genuinely
genuinely
works.
works. So when it comes to your meals, start off by eating your vegetables first. This is fiber, and if you think about fiber in the body, like your body doesn't take it in. So fiber can also help with the digestion of all the foods that are now coming afterwards. So we have our fibers, all of your vegetables, then having your protein, and then having carbohydrates. So we have the layers. Now think about it. Protein is quite a hard, it's a hard thing to break down for the body. Now you have your fibers that can actually help that. And then we also have carbohydrates that will be at the end. But if we put carbohydrates first, carbohydrates spikes blood sugar. But now it's at the top. So you have the contrast. So it's a slower rise of blood sugar. And which is a perfect hack to always be able to enjoy dessert after a meal. Like you will always be able to enjoy dessert. So here we go, food freedom. Like, whoa, for that, right? So this is also, yeah, like how
Hallelujah.
many how many times you're like, oh, I can't have that because it's gonna make me fat. Well, guess what? If you're gonna actually have a proper meal and then have dessert afterwards, girl, you're good to go.
Yeah, your body's gonna be able to break it down, and it's not gonna make your blood sugar spike like crazy, and I've literally trial and error tested this. Like, I remember I was like, I had a full meal, I eat my veggies and then my proteins and then my carbs, and then I had my little sweet treat right after, and I didn't feel the crazy sugar rush or, like, the feeling of, like, I need to fall asleep, like, I just ate so much and I feel like I'm in a food coma, and then I ate a dessert just like in the middle of the day with nothing else. And within like 30 to 60 minutes, my heart rate was starting to
Mhm.
go like really fast. I started to feel more anxious. I started to feel like my body image was starting to like affect me. Like my mind was like, oh my gosh, why did you eat that? Like I felt so much guilt around it. But it's because my blood sugar was spiking. And so, like, if you're listening to this, really give it a try, like trial and error it and test it because it really does work. And when you start regulating your blood sugar, it affects everything, like your cortisol levels, your overall like moods and your motivation. It's just crazy how it's all
Yeah,
linked
and that's the thing with
together.
apple cider vinegar, which is really such a great hack. If you're gonna have apple cider vinegar, if you know that you're going out for traveling, or like you're going to go to a place where you're most probably going to have something sweet or something that could spike your blood sugar, such as like high carbs, you might be going to a birthday party or something. But if you have like a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, like up until like half an hour before you're going to have that meal, your blood sugar is not going to spike as high as what it would if you didn't take the apple cider vinegar. And I remember when I even gave this to my partner one day. I was like, I want you to try this apple cider vinegar. And I just remember within like 2 days, he just came to me. He's like, I just feel so amazing. And the only thing that he changed was just by, drinking apple cider vinegar before every meal. And this was, you really feel the change. So I would leave this to someone like, go try it yourself. Like, don't just take my word. Like, go try it yourself and see if
Yeah.
you actually experience something
Mhm.
different. Just an important thing to note, this has to be apple cider vinegar with the mother. And I would advise that you mix it with some water instead of just taking by itself, because it's still something that's very acidic, highly acidic. Even taking it through something like drinking it through a straw, because it could damage the teeth, it's something to actually just be aware of if you're going to be drinking it quite often.
Yeah, I used to like just like down apple cider vinegar like 2 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is disgusting." But yeah, I never thought to like dilute it with water. I
You know
should
what's
start
really
doing
nice?
that.
if you
It's just so
if you
crazy.
actually
Yeah,
take
go
apple
ahead.
cider vinegar with some sparkling water and maybe just adding a little bit of lemon to that, it's
Ooh.
actually a really nice drink.
That's so good to know. You know what else I just came to mind is I want to talk about magnesium, because you put me onto magnesium, and I'm not kidding. It has changed my life, like genuinely, with my cramps, with my luteal phase, just with recovery for my muscles from working out, with regulating my sleep. I have had sleep anxiety since I was a kid. I've really struggled to get a full night's sleep, and I even still struggle to this day. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, am I going to sleep well tonight? I don't know." But magnesium has been so pivotal in helping all those things. So, like, I would love for you to just educate the girlies listening about magnesium, how it helps with your period, and just like your overall wellness.
Magnesium is the super supplement. Every single person in this world should be taking magnesium, as the world is also highly deficient in magnesium. Now you get different forms of magnesium, and you can go buy different forms of magnesium. But my favorite has been magnesium glycinate, as this is also easily absorbed into the body, and I love to take this at night. You do also get magnesium citrate, and I think it's magnesium chloride. I might be wrong on that one. Don't quote me. However, it also helps with digestion. And a very interesting part is that magnesium is also really good for those who struggle with depression, because it has an effect on the nervous system. Now, we just spoke about how important it is to be regulating hormones with actually regulating your nervous system. And magnesium is that one supplement that does that for you. It has a calming effect on your nervous system. And when we say nervous system, we're also now talking about the brain, because the nervous system literally runs from the brain all the way through the rest of the body. And magnesium is that one supplement that's going to help you with that. And this is specifically important for patients that are struggling with depression and any like mental struggles, anxiety. So it makes perfect sense what you just said, that you've been having the sleep anxiety. And since taking magnesium, how that has helped, which is yet again just another like proof
Yeah.
of how it really is helpful for women in that time, and specifically after training, to help your muscles actually recover faster. Because why? Because it has an effect on the nervous system.
True. It's all so connected. And like, what other vitamins and supplements would you recommend? Okay, so let's just say someone's coming to you and they're like, "Simone, my hormones are all over the place. I'm struggling to lose weight. I'm struggling to see the results that I want to see. My cortisol levels are super high." Like, what is the first like 3 things that you would recommend this person do, and like what supplements would you recommend them try?
Hmm. First things that I would ask them to do is actually just to start by, I'd have to actually analyze it because every person's so different, but I would actually ask them to
So true.
send me some pictures of what their meals look like, so that we can have a breakdown of that and see what is really going on. Of, is this just a case of making some bad choices? Is there really like a hormonal imbalance? Because I mean, you need a lot of good information about that. We can do some tests, which is like the Dutch test, that can really test the like hormone profile to see if the sex hormones are imbalanced. I mean, but the first 3 things I would ask for them is to, give me a layout of your current like meal plan, and what does your daily movement protocol look like, and how is your sleep. So I would actually just ask them these questions. And also, do you struggle
Yeah.
with like a lot of bloating, digestion, acne? There's actually a lot of things. I cannot just go off on three
Mhm.
things because it can escalate.
Everyone's so
And then the
different.
first three
Yeah.
things that I would tell every woman to like supplements to take would be magnesium, vitamin D, and then also this might be like a little bit, it's not like just like a supplement, but there's a supplement that I also really like. It's shilajit, and this is from like, it's very high in minerals and can really help women as well with like helping the body get rid of some inflammation. And this is, you know, it's from the Himalayas. It looks like volcanic, like volcanic like a volcano, something like after volcano erupted. I don't really know like how this English.
That's so crazy.
You
I've
never
never
heard
heard of
about
this
it. Well, this
before.
is something that's pretty interesting. So it might be something that you can
No.
also look into. I'll share some information about that as well. I'm actually I'm actually personally now working with a company with this because I got interested in it. I saw it in the wellness world, specifically that I'm out there like all over in the international wellness world. You start learning about all these things, which another one that has been so helpful for me as well is sugar mushrooms. And sugar mushrooms have all these abilities to have all of the vitamins and minerals that you really need. So you don't need to take it in a pill. And I think this is so amazing because I love to see that nature has the ability to really help us heal ourselves. You know, I mean, God created nature. I'm not really someone that enjoys taking medicine,
Yep.
to be honest. You know, like I take my supplements, but that's why I love something such as sugar because I was drinking this. It's like a like elixir. It's sugar, and then also shilajit. It comes like in a very pasty form, and you just mix it with some water, and you have that. And anything to do with reducing inflammation in the body will also yet again have an effect on your nervous system, which then again has an effect on the hormones. And that there you go. That's it.
That's so good to know. I mean, like, God literally created everything. And so why wouldn't we look to food and plants and fruits and animals for sources of proteins and every, like, God's given us everything that we need to thrive. Like, I know that the food quality is a lot different here in America. Like, we spray pesticides on everything. There's additive hormones and things, and it's just like you don't even know what you're eating at this point. Fruit looks like rubber. It's like 5 times the size, and so it's really difficult to find the right foods, and they're also super expensive. So I mean, like, I understand the struggle of like not everyone can choose to like eat top shelf organic foods and, you know, afford these supplements, but when we think about it, like, there's ways around it, and there's ways to calm our bodies, like look inward first and then look outward to how we can support our bodies. I think it can be a very overwhelming journey of like, I have to do, I know, okay, now I have to just only eat organic and I have to follow the specific regimen of, okay, I'm in my follicular phase and I know that I have to eat more salads or smoothies. And it's just like,
Yeah,
let's calm down. This is all just a guideline. This is all
yeah,
here to help support you, but it's not a rule book. We first ask God for wisdom, and then we follow what the Lord puts on our hearts. And it's a day by day journey, just like how our journey with the Lord, it's a sanctification process. This is also a learning journey too. I went so crazy in the beginning, like cutting out all toxins in all of my products and my lotions and my soaps and my deodorants and all this stuff. And it's so great to do that. But like, don't get so obsessive about making, like,
yeah,
getting it all right, because we're never going to be perfect on this side of creation. And that's okay. But I think it's just mindfulness of understanding your body, what God is putting on your heart, how you can better support yourself. Like, I love how you said about sitting with yourself and asking yourself, what woman do you want to become? What does she look like? How does she train? How does she love her family? How does she love her partners and her coworkers and her church? And how does she love herself? That's where we have to start. And I want to just ask like two last questions. So I want to know a little bit more about how this like hormonal journey has helped your bipolar disorder, and how it also just helped your relationship with the Lord. So those were two kind of different questions. But yeah, feel free to just answer those
yeah.
because I'm very
Now,
curious.
being diagnosed with bipolar at the age of 20, it was crazy. You know, this was still in a time, I mean, like I'm 31 right now, so we're talking 11 years ago. It was still in a time where mental health was not a topic. I thought that, you know, like now I'm labeled as a crazy person and you feel like very shy, broken. It wasn't something that I wanted to talk about. You know, I thought that my life would be, I wouldn't be able to reach success. And it was a very crazy place to be, very scary. And I tried to deny that part of myself for a very long time. And it was because I was diagnosed with the bipolar that I ended up getting into self-development. I fully believe that I'm going to be that person one day to win a Nobel Prize that said that I know how to heal bipolar. Because when you get diagnosed, the one thing that really left me without hope, and being left without hope, there's no work of God in that, was that there's no cure. So imagine you're like,
Mm.
it's like it's the craziest thing. I don't want to make comparisons, but I mean, like, this is still an illness. And I think this is the thing that some people forget. It's not just I'm struggling with mental health. Like, I'm diagnosed with an illness. This is lifelong. I'm going to have to deal with this the rest of my life. And by going through all of that, I mean, I went through a lot of questionnaires and sessions, and we did, all of the screening to really come down to the fact that, okay, this is bipolar type 2. You have to be taking medication. But being 20 years old, I was stubborn. In that time, I let my faith go in God. My parents got divorced, and I was just like, how can there be a God if all these bad things are happening to me in my life? And now being diagnosed with this mental disorder, I was off of my head, to be honest. And I went down a road of complete self-destruction until the Lord Himself found me in 2017. And this was the part where, fitness started for me. I started really looking into ways to be more healthier. So I got out of the scene of, nightlife, parties, drugs, to going on to a journey of learning who Jesus is. And you have to imagine, I was not in a church. I was not in a church community. I was in Monaco at the time. I mean, and this is Monaco, of all places, where I met Jesus. And it was really like a personal journey of getting to know Jesus, like by myself. I was away from family in a foreign country, speaking, like, they don't even speak my language. It was real and it was so raw, but it's the best part of my life. And going through that journey, I learned through, like, how to regulate my mentality with the type of books that I was reading, the people I was surrounding myself with fitness, with the nutrition. And a lot of it helped. I was without medication since the moment I got diagnosed, didn't take medication, and I was able to build a life. Was it tough? Of course. But it all came down like 2020 when we went into isolation. All of the things that I did, like the training, and I was really good at, staying consistent and all of that. All of a sudden, like, it just didn't work anymore. And I got really sick again. And it got really bad to a place where in 2022, the month of May and June was the worst. I literally was thinking about, you know, putting an end to everything. And it was so tough. And I remember it was for the first time since being diagnosed. I called my mom, and it was the hardest thing. That there was such a spiritual attack on this. I remember I wasn't even able to open my mouth when I called my mom. I literally was speaking to my teeth. It's like
Mm.
something was stopping me from actually doing that. I was like, I need help. Like, I really need help. It was the first time ever. So since being diagnosed, I only, reached out for help, went to go see the doctors, and they couldn't believe that I've been able to build a life, being able to sustain myself all this time by actually dealing with something such as bipolar type 2 without medication. And I started taking medication for the first time in July 2022. So it's not even been a long journey yet. My entire life changed for the better, like, completely. And I had so much more
Mm.
mental peace, and I
Amen.
had so much more clarity about things. And then now, by going through the journey of learning more about women's hormones, how much my mental health also has improved from that. So I have to admit, like, I am taking medication in the background, but then with the added knowledge of learning more about women's cycle and how that also has an effect when the hormones change, the effect that it has on the brain. I mean, you can literally see the woman's brain
Yep.
changing through every single part of the cycle. When I started incorporating what I'm learning, how much better and how much more stable I got. Because I think for us as women, like, you need to understand that for you, it's normal to sometimes be unstable, and not to see that as something that's bad. Like, this is part of your flow. And I think this, again, it goes about, like, feeling guilty if you're not what you think you should be. But nobody told you before that that's not who you are. Like, you actually go through these phases. And by
Mm-hmm.
adding all that, it made me realize how many women are being diagnosed with depression or bipolar when they might actually just be having hormone, like not having like hormones that are balanced. And I think so many women are being misdiagnosed. So many, because women have the highest level of depression in the world. I mean, we got to question that. And how come, like these women, once they start going into a place of learning more about their cycle, about their own physiology, it's such a personal journey to you. And having someone like, how we started talking, you went off and you started doing your own research and you started like checking in with your body. And that's all I'm here to do. I'm just here to raise the level of awareness, give you inspiration, guide you along that so that you can have that same level of freedom that I'm experiencing right now, even while struggling with a mental disorder. But so many women that I've been working with have
Mhm.
just been struggling with mental health, are now in such a better and stronger mental space because now it's like I said, the voices start going away. When you can have someone to guide you through that, another woman to tell you, like, hey, it's actually for you okay for you to feel this way. And you're like, wow, really? I'm actually allowed to feel this way? And it makes sense because of the fact that these hormones are, some of them are down, some of them are up. And that's why I'm feeling this way. And it's normal.
All glory to God. Like, he created our bodies, he's sovereign over our bodies. He knows exactly what we need when we need it. And it reminds me of scripture where it says, like, if we suffer with Christ, then we also receive his comfort. So, like, suffering and comfort kind of go hand in hand. And I think it's so interesting that when we're suffering for Christ, or we're on the side of creation, like God says we're going to suffer, okay? Like, you're not going to be free of suffering, but it's also paired with comfort. And no matter what we're going through, if you're listening to this right now and you're struggling with a hormonal imbalance or your fitness journey, like, and you're just so frustrated and you feel so stuck, or you're dealing with a mental health issue, like, just know that Jesus is with you through it. And I want to break the stigma right now that medication is bad. It's not. God created doctors, he created medication. If you need to be on medication for depression or a bipolar disorder, like, follow the wisdom of the Lord. Like, God gives us these things as resources and tools to help us in order for us to thrive. Like, go to therapy. There's even like a stigma around therapy. But I think as Christians, we need to admit sometimes that we don't have the answers on our own. And we need to reach out to other people and professionals for help. And there's no shame in that. There's no condemnation
Amen.
for those in Christ Jesus. If you need to be on medication, go on medication. Like, follow the wisdom of the Lord. Always bring it to God. Journal about it, pray about it. I think your story is so inspirational, and it's just I just love that you say that you're current, like, you'll struggle with this for the rest of your life. Like, Second Corinthians says Paul
Yeah.
had a thorn in his side. We all have a thorn in our side, and we are all going to carry around wounds and things that we struggle with on a daily basis, but it all just points to
Mhm.
the glory of God. And we're not perfect people. We're going to be broken until we meet Jesus in the air one day. And I just love that Jesus, doesn't choose perfect people in the Bible either. Like, Moses had a speech impediment and he had social anxiety. And he was like, actually, God, can I bring my brother Aaron with me to speak because I can't public speak? Like, we look at these people, and I look at you too, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're all so beautifully ourselves and we're all beautifully broken at the same time, but we're so
Yeah.
perfect in Christ. And I love you so much, and I literally am so grateful for you. You've taught me so much, and I know that women listening to this are going to feel like they could take a sigh of relief hearing your story and your testimony and just the wisdom that you have. Like, God is using you in such profound ways. And for anyone listening to this too who wants to have more knowledge and wants to work one-on-one with you, like, tell them about where they can find you, about your coaching program, and about like the little freebie
Yes.
that we have for them too. If you've made it this far in the podcast, we have a freebie for you.
Every listener that's on here today, I am giving you the opportunity to actually learn more about this and start understanding your cycle a little bit better. So you can get grab of my freebie, which is the cycle syncing guide. And they can just send me a message on my Instagram handle at I am Simone Estelle and just send me the word flow and I will send you through, your freebie for the the cycle syncing guide. And this is going to be a great journey for you to actually start to understand a little bit more about that, get more in depth. And obviously tuning into Kim's Holy and Hormonal podcast, that's going to really give you so much more information and understanding what it is that we're really referring to with that. And everything else you can find on my Instagram. I'd love to connect with each and every one of you, specifically if you've been inspired by the story about mental health. I know how hard it is as well when it comes to, deciding should you take medication or not. I'm very happy to share that journey with you, because I myself have been very stubborn in not doing that. And I'd love to really connect with all of the people that have been on this podcast. And yeah, looking forward to it. So let's flex and flow.
Just want to gas you up right now and just encourage you, Simone, because the wellness space can be very new agey. It can be very dark. I feel like Jesus isn't as present in women's health or just in general in the fitness and wellness space. And I just love that he's sending you there to be the light. Like it's so all over you. You are so in the will of the Lord for your life. And I just want to leave you with encouragement for that. I think this is the wrap of the podcast. I had a blast talking to you. I hope you learned something new today. If you're struggling with anything, you can reach out to me and Simone. You can email holyandhormonalpodcast@gmail.com. Simone, you can reach her on Instagram at I am Simone Estelle. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I will see you guys in the next one.